The massive doors of the Galactic Council Chamber opened with a deep hum. Ambassador Jake Morrison walked through them with steady steps. His black diplomatic uniform was crisp and clean. Behind him walked Lieutenant Lisa Carter, carrying a data pad and looking around at the huge room. The chamber was enormous. It could hold thousands of beings. The ceiling stretched up so high that it disappeared into shadows. Floating platforms held representatives from dozens of alien species. Some looked like giant insects. Others resembled walking trees or living energy clouds. The air smelled strange, like metal and something sweet that Jake could not identify. Jake had been Earth's main diplomat for 12 years. He was 52 years old with gray hair at his temples. His blue eyes were sharp and calm. He had seen many things in his time representing humanity, but this meeting felt different. There was tension in the air that made his skin prickle. Lisa. Carter was 35 and had served as his aide for 5 years. She was smart and tough. Her brown hair was pulled back in a tight bun. Her green eyes watched everything carefully. She had been a soldier before becoming a diplomat. Jake trusted her completely. They walked to the human section, a small platform near the back of the chamber. It was much smaller than the platforms given to the older alien races. This was not an accident. Humans had only been part of the galactic community for 50 years. To the aliens, they were newcomers. Many aliens thought humans did not deserve to be here at all. The largest platform belonged to the Zephyrians. They looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. Their scales were dark green and their eyes were yellow. High Chancellor Vextar sat on a throne made of black stone. He was 8 feet tall, and his claws clicked on the armrests of his chair. The Zephyrians had ruled parts of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. On another huge platform were the insects called the Hive. They looked like giant ants, but with 4 arms instead of 2. Their queen, Zegth, was twice the size of the workers around her. Her body was covered in shiny black armor. The Hive had eaten entire species in the past. They called it absorption for the greater good. The third major power was the strangest. The luminals were beings made of pure energy. They glowed with soft light and had no solid bodies. Sage Aurum floated above a crystal platform. When he spoke, his voice came from speakers because he had no mouth. Jake and Lisa took their seats. The platform felt small and isolated. Around them, hundreds of alien eyes watched. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. Many looked like they wished humans would just go away. Chancellor Vextar stood up. His massive form cast a shadow across the chamber. When he spoke, his voice was deep and rough like grinding stones. This council meets to address the human problem, he said. The words echoed through the chamber. For 50 years, we have watched this young species spread across the galaxy like a disease. They take worlds without asking. They build weapons without permission. They refuse to follow the ancient ways that have kept peace for millennia. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he felt his anger starting to build. Lisa's hand tightened on her data pad. They both knew this was coming, but hearing it said so bluntly still hurt. The Chancellor continued. Humans are dangerous. They fight wars among themselves. They destroy their own planet with pollution. They cannot be trusted. With the power they now possess. Queen Zakth clicked her mandibles together, making a sound like breaking branches. The Hive agrees, she said in her buzzing voice. Humans spread chaos wherever they go. They do not understand order. They must be controlled before they harm others. Sage Aurum's light pulsed brighter. The luminals have observed human behavior. For decades, his artificial voice announced. They are ruled by emotions rather than logic. Their actions cannot be predicted. This makes them a threat to galactic stability. Jake watched as other aliens nodded their agreement. Some species that humans had helped in the past now turned away. Fear was stronger than gratitude, it seemed. Chancellor Vextar raised one clawed hand for silence. Therefore, this council has reached a decision. Humanity will accept the following terms immediately. He paused, letting the tension build. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in the silence. First, all human military vessels will be surrendered to Council control within 30 days. Second, all human colonies beyond the Sol system will be placed under alien supervision. Third, faster then. Light travel technology will be handed over to prevent further expansion. Fourth, monitoring stations will be built in human space to ensure compliance with galactic law. The words hit Jake like physical blows. They were not asking for cooperation. They were demanding surrender. Complete surrender. Lisa leaned close. To Jake's ear. "This is insane," she whispered. "They want to make us slaves." Jake nodded slightly, but said nothing. His mind was racing. 50 years of careful diplomacy had led to this moment. All of humanity's achievements, all their progress, meant nothing to these aliens. They saw humans as children who needed to be controlled. Chancellor Vextar smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "The Council is generous. We do not wish to destroy humanity. We only wish to guide them toward civilized behavior. Under our protection, humans can learn to be peaceful members of the galactic community." Other aliens began speaking, adding their support for the ultimatum. They talked about human wars, human aggression, human unpredictability. They made it sound like humans were barely more than animals. Jake listened to each speaker. His anger grew with every word, but he kept it hidden. These aliens thought they knew humanity. They thought they understood what humans were capable of. They were wrong. Finally, Chancellor Vextar stood again. "Ambassador Morrison," he said, his yellow eyes fixed on Jake, "you will now give us your answer. Will humanity accept these terms? Peacefully, or must we enforce them with our combined fleets?" The threat was clear. Submit or be destroyed. The entire chamber fell silent, waiting for humanity's response. Jake Morrison stood up slowly. He looked around the chamber at all the alien faces watching him. These beings thought they held all the power. They thought humans would bow down, like so many other species had done before. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Jake Morrison looked directly into Chancellor Vextar's yellow eyes. The entire chamber waited in silence. The weight of 50 billion human lives pressed down on his shoulders. "I request a recess," Jake said in a calm voice. "1 hour to consider. Your terms." The Chancellor's scales shifted with what might have been amusement. "Very well, 1 hour. Do not keep us waiting longer, human." Jake and Lisa walked out of the chamber with steady steps. Neither spoke until they reached their quarters aboard the human diplomatic ship, U.E.'s Liberty. The ship was docked to the massive station, looking tiny next to the alien vessels surrounding it. The moment the door closed behind them, Lisa exploded. "They want to turn us into pets," she said, pacing back and forth. "This is not negotiation. This is surrender with fancy words." Jake sat down heavily in his chair. For the first time that day, he allowed his shoulders to slump. "I know," he said quietly, "but getting angry will not help us now." Lisa stopped pacing and looked at him. "What are we going to do, sir?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his life, about the path that had brought him to this moment. He had been a soldier once, fighting in the last wars that united Earth under one government. He remembered the burning cities and the desperate battles. He remembered the day when humanity finally stopped fighting itself and looked up at the stars. He had been there when the first alien ship arrived at Earth. The Delphinians had come in peace, offering friendship and knowledge. Those had been hopeful days. Humanity had joined the galactic community with dreams of cooperation and shared progress. Now those dreams were turning to ash. Jake activated his secure communication system. The screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Kate Sullivan in her office on Earth. She was 60 years old, with short gray hair and sharp brown eyes. She had been Jake's friend for 20 years. "Kate," Jake said, "they have made their demands." "Admiral." Sullivan's face hardened as Jake explained the ultimatum. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. "We knew this might happen," she said. "Are you going to accept?" "What do you think?" Jake asked. The Admiral smiled grimly. "I think you are going to tell them where they can put their ultimatum, and I think you should know that we are ready." She touched something off screen. The image split to show Admiral Ryan Clark, commander of the Colonial Defense Force. He was a big man with a gray beard and scars on his hands from his days as a ship engineer. "Jake," Admiral Clark said, "our fleets are in position. We have been preparing for this day since the first threats started coming 3 years ago. If they want a fight, they will get one." Another screen appeared, showing Dr. Helen Price from the Advanced Research Division. She was younger than the others, maybe 40, with red hair and excited eyes that always seemed to be seeing something others missed. "The new defense systems are online," Dr. Price said. "Our ships are better than they think, and we have some surprises that might even the odds." Jake felt a weight lift from his chest. He was not alone in this decision. Humanity had been preparing. His people were ready to fight for their freedom. A new voice came through the system. "Dad?" The screen changed to show Captain Amy Morrison aboard her destroyer USS Defiance. She was 30 years old with her father's blue eyes and her mother's dark hair. She wore the uniform of a Colonial Defense Force officer with pride. "Amy," Jake said, his voice softer now, "you should not be on this channel." "My ship is at the edge of the Kepler system," she said. "We are all watching the news feeds. The whole fleet knows what is happening." She paused, then continued. "Dad, do what you think is right. We trust you, and we will be ready for whatever comes next." Jake felt tears start to form in his eyes, but he blinked them away. His daughter had grown up to be everything he had hoped for. Strong, brave, and ready to stand up for what was right. Admiral Sullivan spoke again. "Jake, you need to know something else. The aliens are not as united as they pretend. Our intelligence sources say that many species are not happy with this ultimatum. Some of them remember when humans helped them. Others are afraid that if we can be conquered, they might be next." Dr. Price nodded. "The Delphinians have already sent secret messages saying they will not support military action against us. The Centauri Federation is staying neutral. Even some Zephyrian colony worlds are asking questions about this war." Jake absorbed this information. It gave him hope, but it also made his decision more important. How he responded would affect not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. "There is something else," Admiral Clark said. "Intelligence reports suggest the aliens are scared, really scared. Not of our weapons or our ships, but of what we represent." "What do you mean?" Lisa asked. "In 50 years, we have built what it took them centuries to achieve," the Admiral explained. "We have colonized 30 worlds. We have developed new technologies. We have solved problems they thought were impossible. They are not trying to stop us from being dangerous. They are trying to stop us from being better than them." Jake stood up and walked to the small window in his quarters. Outside, he could see the huge alien ships floating in space around the station. They looked powerful and intimidating. But now he understood that their power came from fear, not strength. He thought about the human colonies scattered across the galaxy. Farmers on New Texas growing food under alien suns. Miners on the asteroid stations working to build a better Future. Children on Earth looking up at the stars and dreaming of the day they could travel among them. All of that would end if he accepted the ultimatum. Humanity would become a museum piece, kept alive, but never allowed to grow. Jake turned back to the screen. Thank you all, he said. I know what I have to do. He ended the communication and looked at Lisa. She was watching him with respect and determination. Are you ready, Lieutenant? He asked. Ready for what, sir? Jake smiled for the first time that day. Ready to make history. Jake Morrison walked back into the council chamber with his head held high. Lisa Carter followed close behind, her datapad ready. The alien representatives had been talking among themselves during the recess. Now they all turned to watch as the human ambassador returned to his small platform. The chamber fell completely silent. Even the soft humming of the station's systems seemed to quiet down. Chancellor Vextar leaned forward on his throne, his yellow eyes gleaming with anticipation. He expected the human to surrender. They all did. Jake stood at the edge of his platform and looked around the enormous chamber. He saw hundreds of alien faces watching him. Some looked bored, as if this was already decided. Others seemed curious about what the human would say. A few looked almost sad, as if they regretted what was about to happen. Chancellor Vextar, Jake said, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber. Distinguished members of the Galactic Council, you have made your demands clear. Now I will give you humanity's answer. The Chancellor's claws clicked on his throne. Speak quickly. Human, our patience grows thin. Jake smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. You call us dangerous. You say we are unpredictable. You claim we threaten galactic peace. His voice grew stronger with each word. Let me tell you what I think about your claims. Queen Zaith's mandibles clicked together in irritation. She had expected immediate surrender. This was not going as planned. You say we are aggressive, Jake continued. In 50 years as members of this council, how many wars have humans started? How many species have we attacked without cause? The answer is 0. We have never fired the first shot in any conflict. He turned to face the Zephyrian platform. Can the same be said for the Zephyrians? 3 years ago, you conquered the Andorian system. You said it was for their own protection. The Andorians might disagree, if any of them were still alive to speak. Chancellor Vextar's scales darkened with anger. The Andorians were primitives who could not govern themselves properly. Exactly. My point, Jake said. You decided they were not good enough to rule themselves, so you took that choice away from them. Forever. Jake turned to the Hive platform. And what about the Great Hive? In the last century, you have absorbed 3 entire species into your collective. You call it joining the greater good. I call it murder. Queen Zacht rose to her full height, her workers buzzing angrily around her. Those species were weak and divided. We gave them unity and purpose. You gave them death, Jake replied coldly. You erased their cultures, their languages, their very identities. You turned them into copies of yourselves. He faced the luminal platform where Sage Aurum floated in his glowing energy form, and the wise luminals who claimed to be above physical concerns. Tell me, Sage, how many primitive species have you guided into extinction because they could not meet your standards of enlightenment? Sage Aurum's light flickered. We have only sought to prevent suffering by ending hopeless struggles. You have only sought to prevent competition, Jake shot back. Every species you have guided to extinction was one that might have grown to challenge your wisdom. The chamber erupted in angry voices from dozens of species. Some aliens shouted in their own languages. Others demanded that Jake be silenced. But Jake was not finished. You want to know what makes humans dangerous? He called out, his voice rising above the noise. It is not our weapons. It is not our ships. It is not even our willingness to fight. The chamber slowly grew quiet again as the aliens listened despite themselves. What makes us dangerous is that we refuse to accept that. Things cannot be better, Jake said. You call it unpredictability. We call it hope. He began to pace back and forth on his small platform, his passion growing with each word. In 50 years, human doctors have developed cures for 17 diseases that plagued alien species for millennia. Human engineers have improved space. Travel efficiency by 30% for everyone who uses our innovations. Human diplomats have negotiated peaceful solutions to conflicts that your consuls thought were hopeless. Lisa watched her ambassador with pride. This was why she had chosen to serve under him. He was not just defending humanity. He was showing the galaxy what they could become if they stopped fearing change. You are not afraid of human aggression, Jake continued. You are afraid of human achievement. In 50 years, we have accomplished what took your species centuries to achieve. We have colonized 30 worlds while maintaining peace among ourselves. We have built a civilization based on growth rather than control. Chancellor Vextar stood up, his massive form casting a shadow across the chamber. Enough of your speeches, human. Your arrogance only proves our point. Jake turned to face him directly. Arrogance? Let me tell you about arrogance. Arrogance is 3 ancient species deciding that a younger civilization must be destroyed because it grows too quickly. Arrogance is demanding surrender from a people who have never threatened you. Arrogance is claiming to protect the galaxy while planning to enslave a quarter of its population. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the most hostile aliens seemed stunned by the human's words. You want our answer? Jake said, his voice now filled with steel. Here it is. Humanity rejects your ultimatum completely. We will not surrender. Our ships, we will not abandon our colonies. We will not give up our freedom to make you feel safer. Queen Zacht H buzzed angrily. Then you choose war over wisdom. No, Jake replied. We choose freedom over slavery. We choose growth over stagnation. We choose hope over fear. He looked around the chamber one final time. You can choose to work with us as equals, or you can try to force us to submit. But understand this. Humanity will never bow down to threats, no matter how powerful the species making them. Sage Orum's light pulsed rapidly. You cannot stand against the combined might of the galaxy. Jake smiled again, and this time it was genuinely confident. Watch us. The chamber exploded into chaos as alien representatives shouted and argued. Among themselves, some called for immediate military action. Others seemed uncertain about what they had just heard. Through it all, Jake Morrison stood calmly on his platform, having just declared war on half the galaxy. And he was not afraid. The news of Jake Morrison's speech spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Within hours, every species knew that humanity had refused to surrender. The reaction was immediate and explosive. On the Zephyrian homeworld, Chancellor Vextar called an emergency meeting of his war council. The massive reptilian leaders gathered in their stone halls, their scales dark with anger. Fleet Admiral Kestok, the Chancellor's top military commander, slammed his clawed fist on the table. The humans have made their choice, he growled. Now we make ours. I will gather every ship we have. The human colonies will burn within a month. Similar scenes played out across hive space. Queen Zacht sent out chemical signals that reached every hive world instantly. Her message was simple: prepare for war. Millions of insect warriors began loading onto transport ships. The hive had decided to absorb humanity by force. The luminals were more subtle, but no less determined. Sage Aurum sent energy pulses to luminal outposts throughout their territory. Ancient weapons that had not been used for centuries began powering up. They would bring their own form of correction to the human problem. But not every species joined the call for war. On the water world of Delphios, Ambassador Coral Waters watched the council recordings with her large, dark eyes. The aquatic Delphinians had always been friends to humanity. Human scientists had helped cure a plague that nearly wiped out their species 10 years ago. Coral Waters sent an encrypted message to Earth. The Delphinian Republic will not join this war. We remember our debts. The same message came from other worlds. The Centauri Federation declared neutrality. The crystal beings of Prism announced they would not fight. Even some Zephyrian colony governors quietly refused to send their local fleets to join the war effort. On Earth, President John Martinez stood before the World Assembly. The Great Hall was packed with representatives from every human nation. Outside, crowds gathered in the streets of every major city, watching the speech on giant screens. "My fellow humans," the president began, his voice steady and strong. "Today, we face the greatest challenge in our history. Ancient powers demand that we surrender our freedom, our colonies, our very future. Ambassador Morrison has given them our answer. Now we must be ready to defend that answer." The crowd erupted in cheers. Flags waved and people sang songs of Earth. But the president raised his hand for silence. "This will not be easy," he continued. "The enemy has more ships, more weapons, more experience in war. But they do not have what we have. They do not have the fire of free people fighting for their homes. They do not have the strength that comes from choosing your own path." In space above Earth, Admiral Kate Sullivan stood on the bridge of her flagship, the UES Constitution. Through the windows, she could see the largest human fleet ever assembled. 500 ships from Earth's Navy floated in perfect formation. More were coming from the colonies. "Status report," she ordered. Commander Bill Taylor, her aide, checked his tablet. "All Earth defense fleets are ready." Admiral Clark reports. "The Colonial Defense Force is moving into position. Captain Morrison's destroyer group has joined the main fleet at Kepler Station." Admiral Sullivan nodded. "And Dr. Price's new systems?" "All ships have been upgraded with the new shields and weapons. The enemy is in for some surprises." Meanwhile, in the outer colonies, ordinary people prepared for war in their own way. On New Texas, farmers loaded their grain ships with supplies for the fleet. On Mining Station Beta, workers converted cargo vessels into makeshift warships. Children too young to fight helped load ammunition and food. Captain Amy Morrison stood on the bridge of her destroyer UES Defiance, watching her crew work. They were young, most of them, but they moved with purpose and skill. Her communications. Officer Lieutenant Sam Brooks looked up from his station. "Captain, we are getting reports from across human space. Every colony is mobilizing. Every ship that can fly is joining the defense fleet." Amy smiled grimly. Her father had started something that could not be stopped. Humanity was united as it had never been before, but the aliens were mobilizing too. Long-range sensors showed massive fleets gathering at the edges of human space. The Zephyrian Armada alone had over 1,000 ships. The hive swarms numbered in the thousands. Even the mysterious luminal fleet was larger than anything humans had ever seen. Dr. Helen Price worked frantically in her laboratory on Mars. Her team had been developing new technologies for years, preparing for this day. The new shield generators could absorb more damage than anything previously built. The improved weapons could punch through alien armor that had seemed impossible to penetrate. "How much time do we have?" asked her assistant, Dr. Mark Chun. "Maybe 2 weeks before they attack," Helen replied, not looking up from her work. "We need to get these systems to every ship in the fleet." Back on the diplomatic station Nexus Prime, Jake Morrison and Lisa Carter prepared to leave. Their mission was complete, but the real work was just beginning. Other human diplomats were frantically contacting every species they could reach, asking for support or at least neutrality. Some results were encouraging. The peaceful gardener species announced they would provide medical aid to anyone injured in the coming war. The trader families of the Merchant Guild declared they would continue selling supplies to humans despite alien pressure. But other news was darker. Reports came in of alien fleets massing at 3 different points around human space. They planned to attack from multiple directions at once, overwhelming human defenses through sheer numbers. As the U.S. Liberty undocked from the station, Jake stood at a window watching the alien ships around them. Some were already moving toward the assembly points. War was coming whether humanity was ready or not. "Sir," Lisa said quietly, "do you think we can win?" Jake was quiet for a long moment. "Win? I do not know, but I know we can fight. And sometimes that is enough." The ship turned toward home, carrying the man whose words had changed the galaxy forever. Behind them, the greatest war in galactic history was about to begin. The alien fleets were 3 days away from human space when the universe changed forever. Admiral Kate Sullivan was reviewing battle plans on the U.S. Constitution when alarms began screaming throughout the ship. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Mills rushed to her side with a look of terror on her face. "Admiral, we are getting distress calls from the Zephyrian border worlds," she reported. "Something is attacking them. Something big." The main screen flickered to life, showing grainy footage from a Zephyrian colony world. What they saw made everyone on the bridge go silent. Massive black ships, each one the size of a city, were tearing apart everything in their path. The ships looked like they were made of living metal, constantly shifting and changing shape. "What are those things?" Admiral Sullivan whispered. The answer came from Dr. Helen Price's laboratory on Mars. Her voice crackled through the communication system, filled with excitement and fear. "They are called the Devourers," she said. "Ancient machines from the Galactic Rim. I found references to them in old luminal texts, but I thought they were just legends." On the screen, they watched in horror as the Devourer ships absorbed an entire Zephyrian city, the buildings dissolving and flowing into the dark holes. Like liquid metal, they consume everything, Dr. Price continued. Matter, energy, even life itself. They use it to build more ships, more weapons. They have been sleeping at the edge of the galaxy for millions of years. Admiral Sullivan felt her blood turn cold. What woke them up, unknown. But they are heading straight for the center of the galaxy, right through Zephyrian space. The distress calls kept coming. World after world fell to the Devourers. The mighty Zephyrian fleet that had been sailing toward human space suddenly found itself fighting for survival against an enemy they could not understand. Chancellor Vextar's panicked voice came through on emergency channels. "All species, this is an urgent plea for help. The Devourers have returned. Our worlds are falling. We need immediate assistance." On Earth, President Martinez called an emergency meeting. Jake Morrison, who had just returned from the diplomatic station, sat at the table with military leaders and scientists. The room was quiet as they watched the reports coming in from Zephyrian space. "They want our help," General Patricia Stone said. "The same aliens who were planning to enslave us are now begging us to save them." Jake looked around the room. Every face showed the same conflict. These aliens had been their enemies just days ago. Now they were asking for mercy. Admiral Sullivan's voice came through the speakers. "Sir, I need orders. The alien fleet that was supposed to attack us is being destroyed. If we do nothing, the Devourers will reach human space in 2 weeks." President Martinez looked at Jake. "Ambassador, what do you recommend?" Jake thought about his speech to the council. He had talked about human hope, about refusing to accept that things could not be better. Now he had to prove those words meant something. "We help them," he said simply. General Stone stared at him. "Help the people who wanted to destroy us?" "Help the galaxy survive," Jake replied. "If we let the Devourers consume everything else, we will face them alone. Better to fight alongside former enemies than to die alone." Within hours, the largest fleet in human history was racing toward Zephyrian space. Admiral Sullivan commanded the Earth forces, while Admiral Ryan Clark led the Colonial Defense Force. Captain Amy Morrison's destroyer group joined the fleet, along with ships from every human world. The first battle took place at the Zephyrian colony of Kethver. When the human fleet arrived, they found the planet under siege. 3 Devourer ships, each one massive beyond imagination, were systematically destroying the surface, while Zephyrian defenders fought desperately to evacuate civilians. "All ships, attack pattern Delta," Admiral Sullivan ordered. "Focus fire on the lead Devourer." The human fleet spread out in a formation the aliens had never seen before. Instead of charging straight at the enemy, human ships moved in complex patterns, hitting the Devourers from multiple angles while avoiding their return fire. Dr. Price's new weapons proved their worth. The enhanced energy beams cut through Devourer armor that had shrugged off alien weapons. The improved shields held against the dark energy blasts that had destroyed Zephyrian ships in seconds. Captain Amy Morrison dove her destroyer between 2 Devourer ships, firing at point-blank range while her crew worked frantically to avoid the reaching tendrils of living metal. "Take that, you metal monsters," she shouted as her weapons tore chunks from a Devourer hull. The battle raged for 6 hours. When it was over, all 3 Devourer ships had been destroyed. The human fleet had saved Kethvar and rescued over 2 million Zephyrian civilians. Chancellor Vextar himself came aboard the UE's Constitution to thank Admiral Sullivan. The proud reptilian leader looked smaller somehow, humbled by what he had seen. "Your people saved mine," he said simply. "I do not understand why." Admiral Sullivan smiled. "Because it was the right thing to do." The war against the Devourers lasted 3 months. Human tactics and technology, combined with alien knowledge and resources, slowly pushed back the ancient threat. Species that had been enemies for centuries worked together to survive. Jake Morrison found himself appointed as the new Secretary General of Galactic Affairs, leading a reformed council that treated all species as equals. The old system of ancient powers dominating younger races was finished. The final battle took place at the Galactic Rim, where the combined fleet destroyed the Devourer mothership and sent the survivors fleeing back into deep space. When it was over, the galaxy was forever changed. The Galactic Council met again, but this time the human platform was at the center of the chamber, and Jake Morrison's words carried the weight of the species that had saved them all. "We have learned something important," Jake said to the assembled delegates. "Alone, we are vulnerable. Together, we are unstoppable. Let us never forget this lesson." The galaxy had tried to change humanity, but in the end, humanity had set the galaxy free.